Good morning, Flo and everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity. As I have been introduced, my name is Dorah Marema. I am Director of Gender CC, Southern African Women for Climate Justice. I'm also one of the co-founders of the Green Business College and a member of the C19 Gauteng Food Working Group. So in terms of my background, as Flo has indicated, I've been working in Gauteng, basically in inner city Johannesburg from the early 90s, like literally from 1990, when I worked with Greenhouse Project. And urban agriculture has always been a big part of the programs that we've been running. I later started working with Gender CC, which also have been situated within Greenhouse, and later on at Victoria Yards. And then also co-founded the Green Business College, which was also situated within within Victoria Yards in Bertrams as well, Johannesburg inner city. So that has been that is literally my background, and I believe that over the years, we have been able to learn, a lot with regard to urban agriculture and working with various stakeholders around that. So in terms of what I've been asked to do, which is to look at the potential functions of urban agriculture, and I think very much within the advent of COVID-19, definitely, there are a whole lot of things that even us, we were really not that we're not really aware of as far as urban agriculture is concerned. And I think from the work that we have been doing within the C19, which is largely have been around connecting smallholder, urban farmers to the communities who have been sitting without food immediately after the lockdown. We realize that there are a whole lot of other, potential roles and functions that urban agriculture can be able to do. Definitely, I believe that it can play a big role in terms of nutrition is concerned, not only just for children, but also for the aged and for the sick. And I think it's, with the right amount of support and information that could be given to the people, there is a whole lot of nutritious food that people are able to produce. And I will always give an example of some of the practical interventions that we did, which is we worked a lot in the city of Johannesburg, Region G, in 12 communities where we worked largely with households in the beginning, and then later on it emerged into working with community groups who've been doing urban agriculture for a while. And I think it was important at the time because we were providing a box, a vegetable box that was given to families that were vulnerable. And over time, the farmers that we were working with started to suggest that one of the strategies that we should employ is to donate also the gardening starter packs for the households that didn't have gardens. I must also point out that a lot of the households in those 12 communities already had backyard gardens. So that's one important thing to indicate. And I think it's, it was very humbling for us as we were distributing the food to identify what excess form of produce these backyard gardens were already producing, and be able to offer to buy back some of the produce. In the beginning of the lockdown, a lot of the families had maize, a lot of community gardens had brinjals, and they had some tomatoes that they were not able to consume or even to sell at the beginning, and we were able to buy back to put into the boxes. So I think definitely urban agriculture is able to contribute to dignified, sustainable livelihoods. People were able to, they really felt a sense of, responsibility towards the fight against COVID-19, as they were able to contribute some of their excess produce into the food boxes that we were already providing. And they were also being paid for that. So I definitely believe that there is a critical role that urban agriculture is able to play, especially in communities that are regarded as being less resourced or, poor in a way, or resource poor. because I think even though we were in these communities, there were already some, kind of systems that was already there. People were able to sell to their neighborhoods, and when we came with a system of providing them with seeds and talking about the seed production of seedlings, it kind of started opening up some other opportunities. I think one of the things that we didn't realize as we went in there was, the possibility of communities starting to work together to produce seedlings to supply the smallholder farmers who had, bigger amounts of spaces, and also the whole notion of community compost making, where communities started to ask us, is it possible that you guys can provide us with training? And how about supporting us to work together? There are some open spaces that are there where we could work together to, come up with like allotments for each for each households, and also work together to produce compost because they needed compost there. And we started identifying some of these champions and identifying community spaces where they could work together to look at seedling enterprises and also compost making. I think there are several constraints that they face. Obviously, when they're working in these communal spaces, lack of security of tenure, because they don't know how long they can continue farming. There have been some experiences where people have started growing, and they realized later on that the land, they cannot continue, and they had produce, and there was no time for them to actually be able to harvest and sell. And the owner of the land would just say to them, give me a figure, how much can I pay you so that you can vacate my land and leave. So those are some of the constraints, and also access to pertinent information that they needed in terms of what crops to plant when. How can they be able to get rid of the rodents that were attacking some of their crops? Many of them were struggling with birds eating their produce, and the biggest one was always access to markets for their communal gardens. They were producing excess. They were relying on the neighborhood people to come and buy, and if not, the stuff is not bought, they were forced to donate it with no compensation. So that I saw as a constraint that, if addressed, some of these will be able to flourish. Obviously, selling is not the primary thing for many of them. They would like to be able to sustain their families, especially the backyard gardens. But in a situation where they've access, they would like to be able to sell. And we had a situation of a woman who was, whom I can use an example, who was working in Soweto as a domestic worker from Mountain City, one of the informal settlements in that region. And she was being paid really she was paid 150 per day. She was only able to work 2 days a week. And she would use 40 Rand out of that 150 per day for transport. And when we started working with them because of the lockdown, she was not able to go to work. And with the seeds that we gave them, she was able to make seedlings. And she said she did that to be able to sell to the community members who didn't know how to produce the seedlings and needed seedlings to be able to start growing in their backyards. And when we came and we saw that potential, because we started a box delivery system from the project, which was sparked by the Facebook interactions that we had, and the people from wealthier areas of the city wanted to buy the box and get it delivered in their own areas, and also wanted to buy the seedlings, the seeds and the compost that we're also providing to the communities. We found that we will have now a bigger need for the seedlings for our own community distribution, but also for sale as part of the box that we were selling to the wealthier communities. And we just said to her, at the time she had 800 of the seedlings, and we really wanted to buy all of them from her. She made enough money from that sale that actually gave an idea that if she continued this with an intention of really turning this into a small business, she would be able to generate enough money that would obviously make her really just self-sufficient and not need to be able to take up this domestic work, which was a little bit far and not really paying well enough for her to be able to become self-sustainable. And that's when we started to realize the potential that if these people were able to come together and they found access to a piece of land that they could utilize, that there is more that they could be able to contribute, or more that they could be able to generate per month for themselves and for their own families. And also just the idea that, you know, we could introduce solidarity markets in these communities, linking up with the initiatives that the C19 Gauteng has been starting to talk about, you know, the short food supply systems, where the smallholder farmers in the areas were able to generate enough produce that were bought to distribute in their own communities without having to buy food from far to distribute in the communities, that we could start linking up these champions that we're working with in these 12, into these 12 communities into a system like that. And the solidarity market, that's where they could be able to sell their seedlings, but also sell the excess vegetables that they're producing, but also not just limited to agriculture. It could be other things as well. There are people who are already producing things in the community that could be part of this solidarity markets in these communities. So I definitely think that there is a lot of potential, just looking at what we had done during the lockdown with these communities, now expanding to a huge program of working with churches, working with orphanages, working with clinics and schools to roll out communal urban agricultural gardens that has been supported by the project that we run. I think there is a huge potential. Thank you.